Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio. You are about to join a frequency that will open your mind, expand your heart, and activate your spirit. Thank you for joining Kelly Meehan, Spirit Baby Medium and Master Energy Therapist. Kelly believes in the power of the Spirit Baby. She speaks with babies in spirit before life, in the womb, and after life. She supports, teaches, and guides others to tune into the intuitive and mystical parts of life for greater wisdom. Join her in meeting your soul baby and build your connection and relationship with deep love and trust. Welcome to Spirit Baby Radio with your host, Spirit Baby Medium, Kelly.
Welcome to episode 109, March 19th, 2021. A True Heart Transformation, Working with Spirit Baby for Guidance and Healing. How has your journey of conception changed your life? What healing and deeper wisdom has supported you? What does it mean to connect with Spirit Baby? How do you show up with your whole heart? I have a special guest episode, and I always go into how I kind of connect with people. And in this particular episode, it's sharing a personal story, Spirit Baby, grief, healing, and her name is Sylvia. Hello, Sylvia. And I'm going to read more about her in just a moment.
Hello, Kelly.
She's here. There she is. Thank you. Sylvia Campos du Tours grew up in California and from a young age was drawn to foreign cultures and traveling. She always knew she was destined to have children and live an extraordinary life. Her career in banking took her to Europe, where she met her husband. They married in Amsterdam and lived there for 10 years. During this time, they began working together on building a family home and having children. Due to a rare condition, natural conception was not possible. From 2011 to 2019, Sylvia had more than 30 assisted procedures, experienced 10 pregnancy losses. Sylvia is being called to tell her story to convey the shared experience of deep longing, connection, loss, grief, and the way forward through faith and healing. Ooh, deep breaths. That's such a powerful share to have there, especially with the multiple losses and that journey. We're going to hear more about that. But Sylvia, I feel like we've met each other. Was it years ago? Remind me. It's been quite some time.
We have not met in person, but at the time when true. I was living in the Los Angeles area, and somehow we found each other and we started working together because I was really drawn to connecting with Spirit Baby. I didn't know how, and you were very instrumental in helping me with getting started on that.
I remember supporting and working, but I feel like it's been, we haven't met each other. I feel like everything is so virtual these days. It's like I've met you through virtual. It's almost like I'm meeting you in person on some level, right? Energy. And I know she's been a part of, I'm saying she for everybody else, but you have been a part of the Afterlife of Spirit Baby Facebook group, and it really, as you say, that I'm instrumental, that your contribution has been really powerful to hold the space for many others as well. But I would, I want to hear more. I want you to share more about what your journey has brought to you and where you're at. And even before, nobody gets to hear the before. We had this really gorgeous conversation. I think because Sylvia is very poetic in her words, just about her experience. And yes, there is hardship in it. It's not, we can see the beauty in these different parts of our kind of our lived life in this time and space. But I would love to hear more about your journey. Well,
I think if you go even further back, because you just we kind of could condense my sharing story about a few years with my husband together, and then we experienced these losses because the condition that he had was a surprise. I mean, he'd had this condition his whole life and didn't know it until it was time to activate his fertility, and then it's not there. But even further back, I think that there's a certain power that we all have throughout life, but it shows up big time when you're, just after college in your early 20s, and you think like everything is possible. And I was fearless. I would say yes to a lot of things, and I still do. And somehow life brought me an opportunity through my friendships to explore giving to others in a way that I'd never imagined was possible. I had a friend via a roommate who was working at a fertility center, and she came to me one day and shared the story of how there are groups of women who come to this fertility center because they need assistance because they're not able to have children because they're in their 40s and it's quote unquote too late for them. And I was really shocked, but very curious and amazed to hear how this all works. And she said that she had donated her eggs to help a couple to have children. And I thought that was an amazing gift. And I thought within my own family, I had an aunt who tried for years to have children and she couldn't. And I thought, wow, I'd love to give my egg to her and help her have children. But because of the familiarity, like it wouldn't have worked. And I said to my friend, I'll do this too. So it wasn't just me, but it was sort of a group of us girls. We just said, we'll do this. I did this. So that was way back then. And, it was one of those things that I did and felt good about. And at the time, I think my roommates and I, we shared the same feelings like, well, we've contributed to society. It's like leave one, take one. And I thought in the back of my head, never a thought of fear, but of like, yes, I can. And, if I can do this for somebody, who knows? Maybe someday somebody might do this for me. And, years later, I found myself in a situation that would have been really tragic, but I was overconfident. My husband and I went to hear the news of some test results, and we were told that he has Asospermia. And Asospermia is the lack of sperm in semen, and there are two types. There's obstructed Asospermia and non-obstructive. And when there's an obstruction, there are ways to relieve the obstruction, and then things start flowing again. But in his case, is non-obstructive. There's nothing that they could do. At least that's what they told us. And my first thought was, well, so we'll just get a sperm donor. I mean, I donated eggs. Why can't we just get a sperm donor? And, they were very adamant of saying, we're sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. You're just going to have to live with the fact that you're childless and will remain this way. And I said, well, no, there's got to be some type of treatment for non-obstructive Asospermia. And, I did research and I spoke to my husband and I said, wouldn't you know it? There is a medical procedure, and it was invented in a country that is a 2-hour drive from us because we were living in the Netherlands. And I said, are you open to it? And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was asked, it was a big ask. Are you willing to have this invasive surgery for the chance of being able to have children? Yes or no? And he said yes to it willingly, but it was invasive. It did have its impact on him, I'm sure, more than just physically, but also emotionally and mentally, because you go from being a person who thinks there's nothing wrong with me, and then the medical community says there's something wrong with you, and you cannot do this and you cannot do that. I mean, that's where things started, and it's quickly they turned around to a positive note because we were able to go to this country. He was able to get the medical treatment. The answer was the same. There's no change. And I said, why don't we just get a sperm donor? And so that's where I started to receive treatments, and I learned about artificial insemination. I learned that it was very inconvenient and annoying and not very in tune with my own body's wisdom to have to go drive 2 hours to another country and be artificially inseminated by, just through the system. But I made it fun. I mean, we always kind of made it, when I did go, we made it sort of like he took a day off from work, of course, because a lot of times, maybe it was in the middle of the week, so we would have to take the day off to go back and forth, but we made it a special couple time. I did all kinds of things now that I think about it to really keep that high hope, be on that high on that high of hope. And that's something that I also gathered from the community of women who at the time I was really involved with. Everyone's trying to have a baby. And you have these very high highs and these very low lows. But when you're on that, riding that wave of high hope, you put everything towards it. You know, they come back and they say, there's only one egg. And I said, that's all I need. I'm going to fight for that egg. You know, they say like, oh, we lost the sperm shipment. I'm like, well, let's get another one. You know, it's just, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going forward. And, you know, let's wear panties that say party with me, and let's listen to fun music, and, you know, just keep everything very positive. And of course, lifestyle changes. I did a lot starting in 2010 when we found out about his condition. So I went to a non-inflammatory diet, and back then I was already mostly gluten-free, but I also went dairy-free. I also stopped caffeine. I stopped alcohol, and I was no fun to my husband or to my friends because they're like, how can you be social without those things in your life? I'm like, you can be, especially when you want a precious baby, like, worth it. So I started to actually see that, you know, there's a polarity thing going on where you want the baby, you don't have the baby, so you give up a lot of things, but you start to gain a lot of other things. I gained a lot of vitality. I gained a lot of confidence. I gained a lot of, you know, just really renewed sense in who I am and what I want. And, you know, I had vision boards, and, you know, I did all of the fertility rituals, creating wreaths, just cleaning my house, crystals. I don't think there's any one thing. I mean, really, I would be like, let's play a game. Name something you can do for fertility. I tried it. I did it all, Kelly. And I experienced conception, implantation, and connection with the growth of that embryo many times. Many times. That I know of, I was pregnant 10 times, and I experienced those losses. And sometimes the losses were physically very easy to navigate, you know, because it was more emotional, like seeing a negative pregnancy test, and then, you know, having to take a deep breath in and then start to share, because sometimes I would tell those close to me, I'm trying to get pregnant and I have a procedure coming up. Please, you know, send some good vibes my way, send some prayers my way. And then, you know, 4 or 6 weeks later having to say, nope, there's no pregnancy. Or sometimes I would forget that I told someone, and it's like, oh, how'd it go? Are you pregnant? I'm like, no, not anymore. So yeah, I did that back and forth for many, many years. And I also had some very traumatic experiences. I had a miscarriage, which resulted in emergency surgery. What had happened was that I had a blighted ovum, and it didn't want to release from, you know, the pregnancy didn't want to release from my body. I was told to, you know, that I could take medication and force it. And I said I didn't want to do that. And I remember just a very, very strong sense of I'm not doing that, because we're together now and we have a connection, and I want this to be easy. But it wasn't very easy, not for me. Maybe it was easier for Spirit Baby, but it was not easy for me. I bled for 28 days straight until my iron levels were so low that I was very weak. And I came in and they said my uterus was flooded with blood and I needed an emergency surgery. And then after the surgery, my cycles didn't come back, nor like they should have. And I was worried, and the doctors just kept saying, no, you're fine, you're fine. And I said, no, I want to be seen by a specialist. I think there's something going on preventing my period from coming back. And they found adhesions, which are these like sticky little gluey things that start to grow. It's from trauma from a surgery. So I had those removed, and then I had to go through 2 more, scopic surgeries where they could look inside. And I just kept meditating and thinking, I'd see like a pink palace and just say everything is pink and everything is healthy and it's all healed. And they said, yeah, you're healed. And then, of course, I went back and started doing, I did 6 IVFs all in all, but I went to another country. I did another IVF. I did IVF in 4 countries, I think, which is U.S., Spain, Belgium, Thailand, 4 countries. So I was constantly traveling during this time, and that also was a thought that worried me, because if you have repeat pregnancy losses, one of the possible reasons is because, I always thought there's got to be a reason why I'm miscarrying. And one of the possible reasons is getting on a plane. And a lot of times I would get on a plane to go somewhere to have a procedure. So, yeah.
Wow. So there's so much.
There's so much.
So much. Yeah, there's so much you've gone through, and some of the things I want to kind of swing back to is I heard this gem of insight around, you've done it all, right? This is a big thing. This is what we do to ourselves, right? It's like doing the acupuncture, doing this holistic thing, doing the crystals, doing that, and how it's interesting how the conception journey can bring a sense of almost purpose outside of it. There's something that's changing within the individual, right? It's like there's something that offers change and a certain level of self-awareness. It doesn't mean that you don't have, the desire. Of course, you're working towards family creation, but it's interesting that the journey itself and how it brings these different things. And with all the effort and all the energy and all the countries, it's like you have done everything you could. And even though maybe at times that there's so much questioning of like, is this the right step, or where is this going and this going? And that's a lot to hold too, is like, to have, 10 losses. This is like, and of course your uterus is getting to this point where there's blood and how you're coming back to your body, you're sensing and knowing something is wrong and bringing in that pink palace to know that your body's ability to come back to balance after procedures, which are very invasive. But there's ways we can minimize the traumas or to heal the traumas and physically, emotionally, and somewhat spiritually, but I feel like physically and emotionally more than anything in this earth body. And I want to hear though, and I'm curious, I'm just seeing, baby, like you did say something before, like, how you're feeling the physical connection in your body, like there's pain from that loss and all the blood, and then you're like, babies, but what does baby have to say about that? Like, they're okay. I want to talk more about that, like your connection in this time. And I have seen women go through multiple loss, and then they're questioning, whether it's second, like whether they already have children or whether they have no children. There's always this like this questioning, in that relationship with baby. And it sounds like from a very biological place, especially, and maybe even a spiritual space for you. I don't, know those details as of yet, because you've evolved over the many, times since we've connected. But the physical, like, between you and your partner both, like, working on that level and then kind of dipping in. And you even said something else too. I want to add this in there. It's like, what is the reason, right? This is the biggest thing that I'm hearing more right now than ever. It's like, and I'd say that 97%, my percentage is always changing. I just like to throw a percentage of that. I'd say 97% of the people that see me have miscarriage or some kind of loss, whether it's termination or stillbirth. And so I question that. And so in the past, I'd say year, I have new abilities that I didn't have before. I could see ancestral links between some of losses. And even when there's multiple miscarriage, how it comes back, a lot of times to partner and their sperm on a lineage level. And I'm going to speak more about that in another podcast, the sperm and the lineage and that energetic connection between that. And so even though there's this information, this energetic information, it doesn't really change much, right? It's like, well, I still have these feelings, I still have this experience. Right. But I always feel like in multiple loss, it's not one thing. I know we crave that. Like, well, just tell me I got to get over my anger, Kelly, and then the baby will come. I'm like, if it was only that simple, right? And I say that because I feel like it's so important for people to hear, and this unwinding journey or have this self-discovery into who you are. But I want to hear more about, your connection with spirit children. Like, what was that like in this journey with you?
Well, I just first want to, before I forget, I want to touch upon what you said about, on a spiritual level, it's connected through this ancestral lineage. I listened to one of your podcasts with Mary Ann C., and I worked with her earlier, so just at the end of 2020, and she and I had a session together where there was a breakthrough, and I was so curious to find out, why did this happen? And I got an answer. It, of course, satisfied me on a level, and I can share it with you because it is ancestral in a way, but it doesn't speak to why I had the losses, but it explains why I kept going, because I kept going to the point where, because I once asked one of my doctors, because he said, Ms. Dutoir, why do you keep coming back here? You're not getting pregnant. And I said, well, a woman that has sperm from her husband gets a chance every month to try, right? Because she can make love to her husband. I said, I don't have that. I said, so you're going to have to fill that in for me, and you're going to have it inseminate me. And there's no limit on how many inseminations I can have. I was very angry. I said, but as long as I want to keep doing this, I should keep doing this. I said, but what do you think there should be a limit? And he said, I don't know. I'm like, what's the average? He's like, I would say 7 times. I'm like, well, I'm not there yet. But I wanted to know what kept me going. Because my husband often has said to me, you went beyond where you should have gone. But I did. So I worked with Mary Ann, and she said that when I was a spirit baby, I was miscarried. So I had the experience as spirit trying to come in Earthside and was miscarried, and the pain from that being miscarried, because I wanted to be in this life, because I wanted to live so badly, that pain, because I experienced death, and she said that pain and that fear was keeping me going, because she said that my body related to it in a way that said, if I don't get pregnant, I'm going to die. This is do or die. I need to get pregnant. If I don't get pregnant, I'm going to die. Because even if I'd had, whether it was, a disappointing loss, I just found out I felt the connection, but I had a positive pregnancy test followed by a negative one, so that confirmed that I was pregnant, and it was lost, or that I had like a really physical, traumatic experience with a miscarriage that was a little bit further along. Like, either way, I just kept going. I just said, well, I'm going to give my body 2 months to heal physically. I'm going to keep working on this. I need to do this. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to keep going. I'm one step closer. I didn't come this far just to get this far. I'm going to keep going. And Mary Ann helped me to understand that was because I had died before, and I was afraid of dying again, and becoming pregnant would heal me from that. And knowing that seemed to calm me down and seemed to make me feel a little bit less angry and more understanding and more compassionate towards myself. But yeah, there still is the question, well, what was happening inside my body? Why all the losses? Why didn't it work? I don't know. But I will say one thing, and that is that, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, Kelly, when you are in company with women who are focused on growing their families, you hear all kinds of stories. And there are women, I always would hear about someone and I'd say, wow, I would, in my own judgmental way, I would say, wow, she's got it worse. And I hope for her, but I don't think, I would just say, oh, that doesn't sound like it's going to have a good outcome, but I'm going to support her anyway. And this woman becomes pregnant and has a carefree pregnancy and has a healthy child. And I think, wow. So every time I experience a loss, I would just, my mantra was, thank God there's nothing wrong with me. Thank God there's nothing wrong with me. Thank God there is nothing wrong with me, because it's all possible. I just don't know why.
Yeah. I like this little pause to people tuning and taking that in, because I have seen a lot. I've heard a lot of stories, and I know I keep promising my book, but I'm gathering, there's really interesting stories of, it seems like impossibility for some people, or some people still working on it, or trying to, our minds try to wrap around and try to solve it all and figure everything out. And it's like, what if there is no figuring out. It's really about the experience of being, right? And it's like you have this information, which is so helpful to go, as I always say, once you were a spirit baby yourself, and what was that like? Coming into this world. It is something to explore. And for some people, I do see it as a thing that becomes needed if it comes up in a session with the individual, whether it's the individual or the partner, having foundational stuff to then bring the awareness to the soul and the conscious mind together. And that's what it sounded like it did for you. So you're able to then be like, okay, this, this makes sense, and yet, there may be always little pieces that may not make sense, right? We could do this with a lot of things in our life. Like, why did this? What was that? How did that really heal? Or maybe this feels unhealed. Will it ever change? What will it be? And it's like, how do we then deal with the grief, right? And sometimes mourning forever. And of course, there's levels of that, right? It's like there's levels of that, because when there is loss, there's no closure in the aspect of, okay, I'm okay, I'm moving on. No, death is death. It's like, this is the piece I know we talk about. It's like, so there's always that feeling inside, like, but then
and I feel that grief gives us the experience of reliving a loss in so many different ways. I mean, a loss of a physical child is traumatic. A loss of a pregnancy is traumatic. And what I've come to experience now is it's not just a loss of it from an event. It's a loss. It's an entire life. It's my entire life. I mean, for me, it was the day that I had to pack up all my maternity clothes and bring them to my sister's house because I couldn't do it myself. And it was a little bit of it was a big letdown also for me, because I have this inner powerful woman that says, yes, you can keep doing this. And I really couldn't anymore. I was just so broken. And that was a hard lesson for me, because I want to manifest these things in my life, and I work very hard toward it. And not the way that you would work at a job, but with a lot of time and focus, but just putting attention in that direction. When I would see something, and I would say, oh, that's me. That's not the future me. That is me. I see myself in that maternity dress. I see myself creating this space. My husband and I, we purchased a home together, and we moved into that home, and we were only in that home a year. And I went into the baby room every day. It was empty, but I went there every day, also to empty my thoughts and to try to connect. That's where I first started experiencing a level of connection that I would call spirit baby communication. It was never audible or visible, but it was more just a sensing that I wasn't alone, that I wasn't crazy, that this was really happening. I had a few dreams that linked, dreams that repeated themselves. I saw the baby room actually filled up with furniture and with a mural and a big crib with, I don't even know, like, this is where it stops because I don't have kids, so I don't know how to parent. But in my dream, I don't know if you're supposed to have separate cribs or you can put two kids in the same one, but there were always two toddlers about 18 months old, and they were standing up, because they both got up at the same time, looking at me. They couldn't say it, but with their eyes, they were saying, "Mommy, good morning. We love you." And that was really beautiful. And I recently went back to that house to meet with the person who's living there. Well, it's a group. It's a family. It was a couple that moved in 4 years ago, and they've had 2 children since. The children are very young, 1 and 3 years old. And I walked into this space, and it was so beautiful, but at the same time so heartbreaking, because I really felt like that was our family home, and it's being experienced as a family home, and there's so much love in there. But yeah, we left that home. And I felt that my journey was just about to start. I have a friend who is very, very talented in seeing things that I never would have been able to sense or see. She said to me, "You just moved into this home, but you're about to leave this home, and there are lots of things that are going to happen. I see you getting married," because my husband and I were married in the Netherlands in the sense that we had a registered partnership, but they come from different cultures, and in his culture, that's enough. I mean, you don't need like a marriage certificate to be considered married. And I just laughed and I said, "That's never going to happen. We're already set. We don't need an official marriage certificate." She said, "Yeah, I think you guys are going to get married and you guys are going to start traveling and you guys will have kids." And 10 days later, my husband came home and said to me, "I just spoke with HR. They're transferring us to China." And
wow.
she asked me about, getting you a spousal visa. And I said, "Yeah, my spouse." She said, "Can I have your marriage certificate?" She said, "Well, we're not officially married. We have a Dutch registered partnership." And she said, "Well, okay, so you guys aren't married?" And so he goes, "Well, we can get married." And then he said, "Hey, Sylvia, can we get married soon?" And I said, "Yeah, we can." So we eloped and we moved to China.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then what's more of that story? Where does that story go? Where are you at today then?
There's so many things in it. And I guess where I'm at today is that I'm still grieving. I'm still asking the questions that anybody in my situation is like, will I ever have children? Will it ever stop hurting? Have I healed completely from the anger and the frustration? And what's next? What do I get to do with my life? And I have women in my friendship circle that are pushing me to go on NPR, talk about this, write a book, and I'm just I said, "What for?" I said, when I was, that's really my first reaction. Why would I want to do that? Because it takes a very courageous heart to write down your whole life experience. But I've never written anything, so it's a lot of, there's at first that self-doubt of like, I don't think I can do this, and then there's a second self-doubt of who would want to read this story, because when you're trying to form your family, or at least when I was always looking for those success stories. How old were you and you still got pregnant? What ailment did you have and you still got pregnant? You had all the odds stacked against you and you got pregnant. That's the story I want to read, and that motivates me, and that makes me want to continue forward. But then I think of all the women who tried for however long and didn't create their family, and are like me now doing something else. And I also explored that side of it when I was before I went to China. I was very bitter and depressed. Grief and depression are separate, but there's a lot of depression that I think comes inside of grief. And I just hit that wall where I was just unmotivated because all my motivation came from trying to get pregnant. And then I couldn't get pregnant anymore, so I was very unmotivated. And I guess where I'm going with that is that there's probably a lot of women, I'm not alone, and they are also unmotivated, and they're in that point where sometimes it's just, I guess, an experience in itself to know that you're not alone. And I think that's what it is. That's what I'm trying to come to the realization of, that if I am able to start, I will finish it. I haven't started yet, Kelly, but if I start to write a book about this time in my life, it will speak to a certain set of women who got as far as I did. We are where we are.
And I want to, some of the things that you said, a few things here, and a question I have. It reminds me, I just grabbed this book I was reading, and it was recommended in the Afterlife of Spirit Baby group. It's called Once More We Saw Stars. It's a memoir by Jason Green with an E on the end of his name. And it's like, who would want to read a book like this? The writer is magnificent. The way he writes is so poetic, but the story, it is not a happy, I'm going to walk away and feel all shiny. I haven't finished the book yet. Maybe the end is shiny. But it literally talks about how his daughter died from a freak accident at 2 years old, right before the babysitter's eyes. And it's like, who would want to read that story, right? This is what we go to. Who would want to read that story? And why I'm saying that is because your story is valuable and that there is community and energy, but you have to feel the worthiness, the vulnerability, right, to go, I'm going to write this and be a part of it. But you may feel like in this in-between space, right? It's like, how does the book want to write itself then, and how does it want to kind of come out and unfold? And to know that it sounds like with your compassionateness, and I know your energy, it's like you're like, I'm here, like it's like you're opening arms to hold others that are in that space, that are resonating in this kind of, these feelings of grief, of, even depression, or just questioning, is it over, is it not over? If it is over, what does this look like? How do I then, what does my life look like? And it's like, not that you have to project so far ahead either. The thing I want to hear, and I'm sure others are maybe curious about this, is, and I'm sure it's something you looked at, because you did talk about, sperm, or like, embryo adoption and baby adoption, surrogacy. These are the things I'm sure people are curious about, because I have worked with women with surrogacy, actually one particular woman who came with multiple miscarriages, and then it's interesting because her son had to come through that way through past life reasons. But also I've seen embryo adoption has been a thing, and even just physical childbirth stuff. And it is a very unique experience for people, and to weigh, I'm sure other people have said that to you, and I'm sure it's like you're probably, maybe it's like it's an intense conversation, you're just like, okay, I've heard this, but what is your energy and take around that?
Well, around the time that you and I first started talking, I decided to surrender to all of it and to open myself up to the possibility of trying more things, because we did try sperm donor through artificial insemination, and we actually had a doctor that taught us how to do it. So my husband and I did the artificial insemination ourselves. So that's another part of it. We did IVF with donor sperm, and then we did IVF with donor sperm and donor egg, and we also did what they call embryo adoption, which is embryo donation. And I did that in the U.S., and that was during the time. So basically, I gave myself a year off, because I thought, well, with embryo donation, I don't need to focus on my eggs. I don't have to focus on sperm. I just need to focus on relaxing and allowing myself to understand that my acupuncturist told me that there are 3 things required to have a baby: sperm, eggs, and a heavenly spark. So I just took a year off to try to heal myself and to try to receive that heavenly spark. And what I asked heaven for was, I said, I'm tired. I'm tired of doing so much, and I'm tired of looking for these solutions. So I don't want to do this hustle anymore. If I'm meant to have a baby this way, it literally has to drop out of the sky. Someone has to offer it to me. And via a friend one day who was in my fertility group, so I hadn't left my fertility group yet, but I wasn't really active, but a friend contacted me and said, I'm pregnant, I'm 50 years old, and we got help through assisted reproduction, really through an egg donor. And she said, and we have embryos left over, and we're thinking about donating them. Wouldn't you consider doing embryo donation? And, here's a group that's helpful. You might want to just go on there and just send it out and then come back to me. I joined that group. I told a short version of my story. And, wow, Kelly, I just, within 2 months, I had private messages from several families that had embryos on ice that said, we just like you. We get a great sense from you. We click with you. We want to gift you our embryos. And I just thought, you do know that I am in my 40s and that I've had 10 losses. And, it's like, if someone's going to bet on their embryos going to a good home, like, you might want to look somewhere else. But of course, that's what I'm thinking. It just kept coming, all these opportunities. And then of course, you have to align. So I told my husband, I was like, this is coming our way. Isn't this incredible? And he's like, do you really want to do this again? And I'm like, let's try one more time. And I ended up saying no to these families and saying yes to my friend's offer. And that pregnancy happened 2 years ago, exactly, in March of 2019. And the miscarriage happened in May. And since then, that's it. That's it. Actually, I shouldn't say that's it, because there's more to the story, and I don't think I want to talk about this today, but I came in contact with someone who said to me, what about the eggs that you donated when you were in your 20s? And I said, what about them? They're like, isn't there a chance that they could be out there somewhere? I said, sure. I mean, there's always the possibility that my eggs are still out there, but because, I've heard of eggs that have been stored for years or that were embryos. I said, but more likely there are children that are now about to become adults or are adults that they want to be in contact with me, and maybe that's going to be a part of my life. Or maybe I don't know, full circle, this thing about my eggs coming back to me. But I'm not sure what that would look like. I'm not sure if that means surrogacy. I don't know if that means trying again. Would I just receive let's just receive those embryos and hope that they implant. I don't know. But I try to not feel bitter, because as soon as I shut the door, I'm like, well, that's never going to happen. I start to feel bitter, and that's not a good feeling. So while it's unlikely, no matter how small, the chance is still there. So I always say, well, everything's possible. I mean, even the chance that even the chance that my husband's Asospermia could be cured, but I don't know. And I think that's where I am today, and that is that as much as I've learned along the way, there are so many things I don't know. So maybe that's where I need to be. It's just I just don't know. And there's something comforting in that. There are things that happen every day. I mean, I've had miracles smacking me in the face both ways those last couple of years. Things that people said would never happen, and they just did. They just kept happening.
I almost feel like where there is heartache and heart expansion, there's also inspiration and more to that. And I want to, we're just about coming to the end, and I feel like we can definitely continue to speak about, this story, this connection, and how beneficial it'll be for others that feel the same, always questioning, wondering, and doing that deep work and being reflective. And I would love if you had any last words to share before we end.
Okay.
That's okay. You don't, quiet. We could get some quiet.
Yeah, some quiet. I think it's amazing what you do, Kelly. I want to thank you for just being who you are. I wanted to say, I think that whoever comes into your energy will benefit just from being near you, because you are so in tune with much more of what we can see, taste, feel, touch, or hear. And I know we have these gifts. All of us have it within us. I believe in that. I know that to be true. But the level of dedication and that some people have just more natural ability, and it's a skill to be practiced. And it takes a lot. At the time when I was really, 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 really focused on just getting pregnant, communicating with spirit babies, doing the meditations and the chanting just seemed like one step too much. But it does work. That's something that I would want to share with everyone. It does work. I meditated, I think, for 35, 36 days straight, every day at the same time. And one night it just happened. As I was just quiet, I didn't have any thoughts. Just a sense of, I want to feel you if you're really here. Because I'm like, well, and I felt these arms go around me, which really scared me. But it was real. I felt a hug, and that was bizarre and unique, but it happened. So it's good.
Well, thank you so much, Sylvia, for sharing that. And I will receive those beautiful words you share about me. And I always like life is a journey, and it just continues, and you get to see what is before you and what unfolds. And of course, me and many others, we hold wherever your heart's truth takes you, and whatever creativity lands in your space, with good love and good blessings in that.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for joining episode 109, A True Heart Transformation, Working with Spirit Baby for Guidance and Healing. To learn more about my upcoming, I always say subscribe to the podcast, leave reviews. I also have a new, actually we're coming to maybe a year anniversary of it, I think, coming up soon. Is the Spirit Baby Oracle cards, answers from Spirit Baby, really those intuitive, self-helpful tools. Also Sacred Communication, a Spirit Baby journal, and you can get those at Spirit Baby Medium spiritbabymedium.com to get your spiritual Spirit Baby communication tools to help continue to see what next is going to bring you into creation, to healing, and to oneness. Thank you for joining.
This is Spirit Baby Radio. Thank you for joining Kelly in the energy of awareness, love, healing, and soul communication. Please join the next episode at www.soulbabycommunication.com.